The X-Zone radio and TV show is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone radio and TV show or in any manner endorsed by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, Talkstar Radio Network, its affiliated stations, or employees.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
You doing that thing you do, breaking my heart into a million pieces, like you always do. And you don't mean to be cruel. You never even knew about the heartache I've been going through. Well, I try to forget you, girl, but it's just so hard to do. Every time you do that thing you do, I know all the games you play, and I'm gonna find you.
And welcome to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, and for the next 4 hours, I'm your host and your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X-Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X-Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern on the Talkstar Radio Network, X-Zone Broadcast Network, UK High Definition Radio, Euro High Definition Radio, Star Cable, and X-Zone TV. Worldwide toll-free, 1-800-610-7035. My email address, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. X-Zone Nation, my first guest tonight is going to be talking about a new movie. It's entitled 2012, Time for Change. My guest this hour is... how should we put it? Well, first of all, his name is
Joao
Amorim, right? And he is... Now, what is your part? You're the director and producer of the 2012 Time for Change. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right, so tell us a little bit
Thank
about...
you for having me on the show, by the way, Bob.
Hey, it's my great pleasure. It's always a pleasure to get good news out to the people. And tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became involved in this very interesting project.
Well, I'm a filmmaker. Mostly, I have been working with animation for the past, 13 years, and for many years, kind of got caught up in the advertising world and creating TV shows. And in 2006, I was animation director for a film called Chicago 10, which talks about the Chicago 7 and the whole 1968 peace movement.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of showed me that I could use my Hello?
Yes, we're here.
Okay. And at that point, I realized that I could use my skill sets, for something that was a little bit more useful than just basically selling people stuff. So right around that time, I got to actually read Daniel's book,
Mm-hmm.
and... initially I was reluctant about the ideas, of 2012. I had heard something about it, but I was a little bit skeptical of it. But when I finally got to read Daniel's book,
Mm-hmm.
It actually resonated with me, especially the ideas around, all the different crises that we are living. Be it the economic crisis, the environmental crisis, that they're really a crisis of human consciousness, and that idea really resonated strongly with me. So then I decided to try to see if I could find Daniel, and through like some synchronic circumstances, we ended up meeting and started to collaborate.
And of course, we're talking about Daniel Pinchbeck here.
Yes, Daniel Pinchbeck, the author.
You and I have to take a commercial break, Joao. You will be back in 2 minutes on the other side of this very short break. X Zone Nation, we're talking to the producer and the director of 2012, Time for Change. His name is Joao Amorim, and we'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue here in the X Zone from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Once again, our contact information, toll-free worldwide, 1-800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv at hotmail.com. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. Once again, for more information on 2012 Time for Change, their website is www.2012timeforchange.com. My name's Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. We'll be back on the other side of this 2-minute break. Don't go away.
And a trifle uncool, but I can't help it, I'm a romantic fool. It's a habit of mine to watch the sun go down. On Echo Beach, I watch the sun go down. From 9 to 5 I have to spend my time.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. My name is Rob McConnell. Our special guest this hour is Joao Amorim, and he's the director and producer of a new movie that's out, and it's going to be a great success. 2012 Time for Change. The website is www.2012timeforchange. Joao, can you tell us a little bit about the film?
Yeah, can you?
We're losing you. Hello, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, you're back. Okay, good.
Okay. Yeah, the film basically came out of a collaboration in between me and author Daniel Pinchbeck. We were looking to create a film to talk about the times that we're living, and in the film, differently than in many of the mainstream media that is outside that's out there. We took a positive approach. 2012 is, for those that don't know, is the end of the long count Mayan calendar, and there's, several prophecies associated with it. And the West kind of took these prophecies and made them very much all about doom and gloom. In our case, we use actually that idea of 2012 more as a meme, more almost like as a deadline for people to take initiative and change themselves, but also start changing the world. So from a personal change, a personal transformation into a change in society itself. So then we talk about Daniel's trajectory as a writer, and his experiences with shamanism. Both in Africa and in Brazil, and how that kind of opened him up to this perspective of what was happening to the planet and what we were doing to nature, and our total disconnect. But we go beyond that, and we start to look at people like Buckminster Fuller, but people today as well that have been working towards solutions for all these problems that sometimes seem to overwhelm us.
How did you get Sting on board and other luminaries such as David Lynch?
Well, Sting, David Lynch, and Ellen Page had actually read Daniel's book and had liked it. So we had like a personal relationship there. The same thing with Gilberto Gil, which I'm from Brazil originally, and so I knew Gilberto Gil and his family. So those people somehow, like, the celebrities were the ones that almost came easier than all the scientists and the people that are researching in permaculture and bioremediation. We actually had to reach out to.
How long did it actually take you to do the shooting for the film, and how long was editing? Well, let's say, how long did it take from the time that you decided with Daniel to work on this project to the time it was finished in the can?
Yeah, so like from when I met Daniel and we, started working together, so the pre-production time all the way to the end, I would say like 2 years and 10 months.
Wow.
But actual 2 years of production time, when we actually started shooting. So it was very quick, and the film has lots of animation. It has over 15 minutes of animation. But, we accomplished it. A lot of people put in a lot of, of their free, a lot of their time, extra time, working for very little. But because it was a project in which I think a lot of people, felt was important, to do. So we managed to really pull it off in a short amount of time.
Why do you think there are so many people in the Western world who look at the date of December the 21st, 2012 as doom and gloom, where I, like you, look at it as a time of positive change?
Well, I think we live in a culture of fear. We have so many films and, so many violent games. And in many ways, I think it serves the purpose of keeping us kind of paralyzed at home, watching TV, ordering food in. And I think that is like inbred into our culture, into the media of our culture. And the media is so strong today that it has a huge effect on people. It's almost like a religion. So when you're embedded in that culture of fear, people are always looking for the next disaster.
What do you think that we here in the 21st century could actually learn from ancient indigenous cultures?
Well, I think a lot of things, but, lots of, not to say that they were perfect, but, in general, most of these cultures lived in a lot more harmonious way with nature, I think we have a notion that we're like separate from nature, that, it's something that is external from us. And I would say that, those more, those tribal, those indigenous cultures of nomad people, they have, their life is so interconnected with the cycles, when the sun comes up and down, so that they're connected to like the natural time, while our time is like so abstract, we're so, we believe that happiness comes through, that we can buy it somehow. And, sometimes maybe that happiness is in the most simple things, like being together as a community and, having songs and what so forth. But I think also the idea of, the other thing that we lost in the West is this idea of ritual, and especially of initiation. So we have a dysfunctional society because we don't have these rites of passages anymore. Young boys, and when they're teenagers, to get some kind of breakthrough, they like drink a lot and then drive their cars very fast. But that doesn't give them that breakthrough. Now, the reason they do that, in my opinion, is because traditionally, we had these rites of passages that were, these initiations to bring, young boys into manhood.
Yes.
And it was a process where you got to like reevaluate your life. It's a chance to almost like be reborn and really see how you have been, and how you can change to the better. So I think that's one thing definitely that we can take from them.
Now, many alternative ecological and spiritual concepts are introduced in your film 2012, Time for Change. Can you share them with us and why you decided to include them in your film?
Okay, so as far as, spiritual practices, Daniel recounts his experiences with iboga, which is a West African root bark. And the reason we chose it specifically is because that was kind of Daniel's path. And then we made a point of showing others, Sting recounts his experiences with ayahuasca, which is a drink, a tea that is made in the Amazon basin and has been drunk by civilizations there for thousands of years. But we also have yoga and meditation to show that there's just not one path, right? I think, people are different, and there's different ways that you can come to, a connection with yourself and nature and, some sort of higher consciousness. So we're not preaching for one or for the other, but, we wanted to obviously recount Daniel's story, so it functions as a narrative in the film. And then as far as the solutions, we're not like preaching that these are the exact solutions, but we highlighted a few that, we thought were very interesting. Like I think, for instance, Paul Stamets was his techniques of bioremediation, of actually detoxifying areas that have been contaminated by oil, is very timely with the with the oil spill we had in the Gulf.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah, and then other people, we have issues with our with water supply. Everybody now is aware that we have a limited amount of fresh water, and how do we think about those issues, and how do we deal with how do we use water in a more efficient way? And there comes John Todd with his living machines, which is a system that actually, instead of using chemicals, uses plants and fungi and animals through a series of different tanks, which are basically different little environments, and cleans up the water perfectly. So that's one thing that we chose to highlight. We show permaculture, which is really a design science that looks at how we can create sustainable and regenerative cultures, including agriculture, by planting diverse types of crops, not using oil-based fertilizers and pesticides, alternative energy sources, as well as looking into the money system, the whole idea of the money system, and how right now we have a fiat currency basically that extracts resources from the top, but there have been a series of different currencies throughout history that instigates different type of behavior. The one we have right now really instigates a competitive behavior, and it is actually debt. As soon as you take money out of the bank, you own the bank money, and the same goes for governments and people and corporations. So there's different ways we can think about money, and a simple example that doesn't have any social benefit is like frequent flyer miles, but that is an alternative currency. And there's many out there. The one that we exemplify in the film is a type of time bank that is used in Japan to work and help elderly and handicapped people. And people that use that currency are extremely happy. They prefer the services provided in that currency than the one provided in the local, the government.
Joao, please stand by. You and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Exonation, for more information, here's the website, www.2012timeforchange.com. 1-800-610-7035, worldwide toll-free, Exxon at exxonradiotv.com, on MSN Messenger, Exxon Radio TV, at hotmail.com, and our website, exxonradiotv.com. I'm Rob McConnell. We'll be back after the news. Don't go away.
It's a habit of mine to watch the sun go.
You're listening to the X Zone Radio Show, live and around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network. X X-Zone Broadcast Network, UK High Definition Radio, Euro High Definition Radio, and Star Cable. Our toll-free telephone number worldwide is 1-800-610-7035. Our email address, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com, and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com.
Why do I feel like I'm losing control?
Sun goes down on a silky day, quarter moon walking through the Milky Way. Oh, you and me, baby, we could think of something to do. It's the right time of the night. The stars are waking above. It's the right time of the night for making love. No use talking.
And welcome back, everyone. Joao Amorim is our special guest, and we're talking about the film that he is the director and producer of, entitled 2012 Time for Change. And their website is www.2012timeforchange. Tell me, Joao, why did you include Buckminster Fuller in your film?
Well, Buckminster Fuller has always been an inspiration to me. You know, I originally went to school for industrial design, and that's when I first came in touch with his ideas. They seemed, you know, like more than just his, you know, the geodesic dome that he created, and all, you know, super highly efficient car in the 1930s and different housing structures. I think what Bucky had was really a methodology, and a methodology to resolving problems. I mean, for one thing, I think he's the grandfather of the environmental movement. He was one of the first people to point out that we needed to look at the Earth as a whole system to really be able to resolve the issues of a, you know, growing population and of dealing with resources in the most efficient way. He had also this idea, which is very similar to the one we put in the film, that, you know, that the crises that we have are not of the environment or economic or, you know, fuel. They're really, he said they were a crisis of ignorance. You know, we say it's a crisis of consciousness. It's really consciousness. You know, ignorance is a lack of consciousness, I would say. So it really resonated and worked well. I think both me and Daniel Pinchbeck had, you know, Buckminster Fuller as something that we had in common in the way we thought, you know, we could help structure this film, but also help look at a more integrated way of resolving, you know, the world's problems. So rather than like looking at over-specialization, which is what has happened in the past, really look more at the network and the interconnection between the different disciplines and how that crossover can help us really, you know, redesign our cities, refurbish them, you know, create rooftop gardens, think about the transportation system in a more integrated way through public transportation and bikes. But it's that idea of integrating all these ideas, including, you know, consciousness and, you know, spirituality, that I think was, you know, a unique approach that Buckminster Fuller have, and that really resonates, I think, with the whole picture that we have in the film.
Now, you're a big advocate of sustainability and permaculture in your very own homeland country of Brazil. Can you tell us more about that?
For sure. I mean, in fact, the film really helped me push that further, because I got to meet amazing people like Paul Stamets and Penny Livingston. But I actually have started a nonprofit organization which is called Ciclo, and it's ciclo.org. That's CICLO.org. with a few friends, both here in New York and in Brazil. So in New York, we actually have done city halls. We did a city hall last year together with Evolver called Thrive New York, where we brought a lot of people to talk about issues of sustainability in an urban environment. But in Brazil, we're actually acting in the Brazilian semi-arid, which is it's the Brazilian Cerrado. It's the second largest biome after the Amazon forest, and it has been much neglected because of all the focus in the Amazon, and has been is being devastated at alarming rates. 50% of it has been destroyed.
Oh my goodness!
And it's important that people start thinking about those issues and realizing that the Amazon is not just the only place. The Cerrado actually has 33% of all the biodiversity in the country, and is the nursery of the rivers. Really, most of the rivers, the river basins in Brazil start there. Yeah. So we're doing a project there, working with a technique called agroforestry, which essentially works with diverse types of plants to reforest an area. So moving towards, for instance, taking an area that was devastated by, cattle or soy or corn, and then turning that around and creating not only a forest, but a food forest. So in the same area, you will plant annual plants. You will also plant, yucca and pineapple, but you also plant trees, fruit-bearing trees and trees that you can use for wood. So it's essentially a food-producing and a resource-producing forest. Even certain plants that generate biofuels, we are planting within that system. The reason we're not doing just simple reforestation is because we have to find a viable economic alternative for the people that have lands. Otherwise they're just not going to do it. So we've been working a lot with that, and we do courses in permaculture and agroforestry, bioconstruction, so building with sustainable materials, mainly with soil itself, and alternative energies. We do all solar there, and we capture our rainwater and store it in tanks, and raise fish, and this kind of things, and train local people, but also people coming from the United States in several of these techniques.
Tell me, what can you tell us about psychotropic medicine?
Well, psychotropic medicine, or do you mean shamanic plants like entheogens? Because psychotropics has a very specific definition.
Right.
If you're talking about plants like ayahuasca and iboga, they are plants. Ayahuasca specifically, there are really two plants that are put together, and a brew is made out of it. Has been consumed by indigenous people in the Amazon basin for thousands of years. Supposedly the Incas used to use it in their rituals, and nowadays in Brazil, they're like widely spread. They're legal under religious use. There's a few churches that use ayahuasca. I think that it's not for everyone, but I think we need to be open to these experiences. Ayahuasca, both ayahuasca and iboga have been used to treat addictive behavior. Cured people that had gone through all kinds of therapy to get rid of heroin and couldn't. It's also very efficient, iboga specifically, to deal with people that have criminal behavior. So I think it's, there's a lot of potential there, and I think we need to look at it with different eyes. We need to look at those substances with less discrimination, because essentially, we've categorized all these substances as drugs and, criminalized them. And, we've had a drug war now for the past 30 years, and what has it brought us? In my opinion, it brought us crack cocaine and the devastation of youth all around the planet. So I think we need to start looking at different eyes to the subject matter and not just categorizing and putting a label on something and then just turning our heads away from it, because I think there's a lot, again, indigenous people have been using them. I think there's a lot, people can learn from it. There's medical uses, but I think we should even talk about just, its ritual use and, if we don't have the choice to do it or not. Because if you look at the statistics, what is killing people the most is, alcohol and cigarettes, which are legal, So it's very, very ironic, I think. And I think we need, in the 21st century, we need to move to a different perspective to be able to deal with these issues.
Joao, what did you learn most while making this film?
I think for me, what I got out of it is to, we spent 3 years talking to people and asking them about consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And, just recently, to me, another word came to mind, which is coherence. Because it's so hard to be coherent. It's like sometimes we have this big, amazing, beautiful discourse, but if you look at our own lives, we're not doing a third or a tenth of all the things that we preach.
Right.
And I think if people would just try to move towards, coherence and to I recycle, but then, really recycle, really compost, whatever, really make an effort of not taking our car and taking our bike when you can, I think moving towards that coherence is something that is very important. And I think that. And then although we use in the film this idea of 2012 as this deadline, which I think is useful for us, at the same time, I think we need to be patient, and, patience is the fastest way. We need to keep at it and, maybe not be so, always hoping that we are going to be able to get everything immediately, and look at what our roles are in this planet as foundation builders for the next generations.
Yeah, that is so true. We are in a society that wants everything to happen, bang, right away, and the old ways of waiting for things to happen certainly has gone by the wayside. What do you hope that you've accomplished with this film?
Well, I hope that it instigates people to take action in their own lives, to reevaluate, if they're happy with their jobs, with their careers, with the way they're, and with the system that we have. I think, I hope it actually opens a debate for us to really start, questioning what kind of society do we want to be living in, instead of just complaining about, some system and they this and they that. I mean, we are they, right? So we voted on these people. So, I think people need to be more participatory, and hopefully it instigates them to somehow better their lives and, respect the planet more.
There has to be more responsibility.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think responsibility and a sense of integrity,
In your film, did you touch on global warming?
Yeah, we definitely talked about global warming. We talked actually to Michael Dorsey from Dartmouth College. He talks about global warming, but also all the different ecological figures, if you may. If you look at, back from 1992 when the Earth Charter was established in Rio to today, through the Kyoto Protocol, everything as far as carbon in the atmosphere, different gases that are in the atmosphere, water resources, melting of polar ice caps, all of those things have gotten worse. So we talk about that, and we don't get caught up on it because I think there's a lot of ecological films or people that have films that have an environmental angle that just are very good at pointing towards the problem, but they don't point towards anything positive. And I think the culture is saturated of that, and it's time that we start to, really have a solution-based approach, and a positive approach, and that's really the focus of the film. We talk about how, for instance, building up Penny Livingston, who's a permaculture farmer. She talks about, for instance, how if we built our soils back up on all the arable land in the planet, we can bring CO2 levels down to pre-industrial levels.
Wow.
You know, and that's by planting diversely, like doing for instance, the agroforest, the food forest that I mentioned. You know, so I mean, we can certainly do it, and we have the intellect and capability. It's a question of will.
It's also a matter of getting those in power, getting them off their butt, and getting their hands out of everybody else's pocket to make this work.
I agree, but I think you know, for that, civil society needs to organize itself better. And right now, I don't feel it is. I mean, in this country now we have 2 wars going on, and we have no anti-war movement because there's no draft anymore.
Right.
So I think we need to build up to that, and I agree. I don't think we can neglect politics. You know, some people in this more like New Age alternative movement, they tend to like neglect politics. But what I like to say is that, you know, people that don't like politics are governed by people that like politics.
Well said. Very well said. You and I have to take our final break. Please stand by. Exo Nation,
Right.
Joao Amorim is our special guest. He is the producer and director of a great new film. And we're going to talk to Joao and find out if it's going to be coming to a theater near you. And if it is, go see it. If not, well, I'm sure we'll be able to get it very shortly online. Here's the name of the film, 2012, Time for Change. Here's the website, www.2012timeforchange.com. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
Earth changes, you're cracking me up. I'm starting to hear about all sorts of weird stuff. It's the bombs, it's the comets, it's the dark days upon us, or so say the folks who all quote Nostradamus. Earth changes, oh prophets of doom. It sounds like disaster. Who's your favorite tune? If it makes you feel better, get it out of your system and tell us about the next big cataclysm. Okay, the poles they will shift and volcanoes will bellow. LA's gonna disappear, New York turn to jello. There'll be tidal waves, earthquakes, fissures and crises. The earth's gonna be screaming, you can all kiss my exes goodbye, bye, bye. Earth changes,
Exo Nation, we're talking about a new film that is out. The name of the film is 2012 Time for Change. The website is www.2012timeforchange.com. Joao, first of all, thank you very much for joining us. Congratulations to you and to Daniel Pinchbeck and to the message that you're getting across. I love the fact that you're actually saying, look, we can make a difference. Things can change, but it's going to take a lot of work on everybody's end. So congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure. What are some of the steps people can take right now to make a change?
I think that there's many different steps. I think, I don't claim to have like like a step program towards, sustainability or not. But I think it's like, reevaluate your life and the things you do, what you need and you don't need. Do you need to buy bottled water? Can you just have a filter at home? Can you take your bike or walk instead of taking the car? Can you take care of yourself a little bit? Take care of your body and mind. There's something you can do to change that. To improve that. Getting organized with local movements. Start by meeting your neighbors. I mean, we live in such isolated bubbles. We don't even know our neighbors.
Yeah.
By knowing your neighbors, you can start changing things in your building. Eventually you can have a rooftop garden. I think building resilience and community are key today.
Where can listeners throughout the United States and Canada and the rest of the world go to see 2012 Time for Change?
Yeah, right now it's actually playing in Los Angeles at the Lamley Sunset 5. I think it's at 4:30 and 7 p.m. It's in West Hollywood, and it's playing through Thursday. So if you're in the LA area and haven't seen it, please go see before Thursday. In New York, we are playing at the Lois Village 7, at AMC Lois Village 7 in the East Village, which is on 3rd Avenue and 11th Street, I think 4 times a day. We're actually having panels after every 7 p.m. screening. Tonight we're actually going to have Morgan Spurlock of Super Size Me, and also No Impact Man with us there. On Thursday we have Gilberto Gil, the Brazilian musician and former Minister of Culture, is also going to be doing a panel with us along with Chalcassin Ghost Horse. But otherwise, we have a special screenings program. So if you want to in a small town, if you go to our website, we have a special screenings program so that this film can be taken everywhere else in the planet. Furthermore, on our website, we actually have a series of videos that are a result of the 300 hours that we ended up having from the film that we didn't end up in the film. Lots of those videos are available on our website already.
Hey, Joao, I hate to do this, but we've just run out of time for tonight. I want to thank you very much for joining us. Continued success, and we look forward to the next time you join us here in the X Zone. X Zone Nation, once again, that website is www.2012timeforchange.com. We'll be back after the news. Don't go away.